I'm going to call to order the Budget Committee meeting for Water Environmental Service District today, June 5th, and entertain a motion for the chair position.
I nominate Alice Richmond for chair of the Budget Committee.
I second that motion.
Been moved and seconded to appoint Alice Richmond as chair of the Budget Committee. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Alice? Here's that. Don't hit me.
This is lovely. The Water Environmental Service District Budget Committee meeting is now in session. And I will ask to have a nomination for the secretary.
Yeah.
I guess we're all in place right now to start the meeting. First of all, what I want to do is say greetings for all those people that are watching this on the cable or. I can hear me. And so that they are following maybe perhaps the meeting also. So I will call the vote. What am I in here?
It's a vote for, is it secretary?
Okay.
I'd like to nominate Greg DiLoretto for secretary.
Second.
Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Can I, and the votes, please? We vote for him?
Yes, he's the
Okay.
secretary.
And we vote for the secretary? All in favor?
No, we already did.
It's well there. This thing is not working. I can hear you well enough, you guys. So bear with me. I now open the public hearing. Is there anybody in the
No,
audience?
no. First, we have to do the presentation. He has to give his presentation, then we open the public hearing.
I guess, Greg, you have the floor.
Thank you very much.
Can we have that presentation, please? Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Greg Geist. I'm the Director of Water Environment Services. Pleased to be here today. I'm going to be giving you just a brief overview of the budget, and I'm going to spoil the ending for you, and then hand it off to Doug to give the bulk of the presentation. So this is the first year. We're going to be presenting two budgets today. Traditionally, we had done three. The West budget that we're going to be presenting right now is a result of the board's direction to form the 190 partnership and bring in Surface Water Management Agency of Clackamas County along with the Tri-City Service District under one budget umbrella to be called WES. July 1, 2018, we will go from, this year we went from 3 to 2, and we'll be going from 2 to 1. On next year's budget. So you'll see that reflected in our presentation today. So this is the first year of the entity known as WES. One thing I want to emphasize is that all three service districts will continue to exist. We will just be they will be operating under the WES umbrella. And so as those service districts expand, the services that they're currently receiving will be expanded along with those districts administered under WES. The financial side of things, whether it's surface water or collection system or wholesale treatment, will continue to be kept separate from a financial standpoint. So some of the challenges that we're facing this year, opportunities, some would say. We're going to be working on construction and pre-financing for some significant capital improvement projects, both for WES and for CCSD number 1. That is mostly around the refurbishment of the Kellogg wastewater treatment plant for CCSD number 1 and the solids handling project for both WES and CCSD number 1. Some of the challenges that we're facing moving towards the future that impact our thinking with respect to rates and contingencies and reserves are our aging infrastructure. Much of what we have in the ground for within the Tri-City Service District for the sanitary side under WES was put in the early to mid 1980s. And some of that stuff is definitely starting to show its age. And so as we proceed with our collection system master planning effort and other planning efforts, we're going to be getting more information about the condition of that infrastructure as well as capacity needs related to that. So we always want to keep that in the back of our mind. I guess the last thing I'll mention generally is we're asking for an increase of 1 FTE for this fiscal year, going from 105 to 106 full-time positions for WES. So with respect to the WES budget, as you know, the wholesale wastewater treatment services provided by WES serve Gladstone, Westland, and Oregon City. And then the surface water services that we provide are the unincorporated Clackamas County area that drains to the Tualatin River. So that will be, again, under the WES umbrella. For the sanitary sewer work, we're really focusing on addressing the long-term cash flow and capital improvement projects that I just mentioned. On the capital improvements, that means about a $5.1 million commitment from the WES, essentially the Tri-City capital expenditure budget. And again, that's focused on the solids handling capacity issues that we are going to be facing this year. On the surface water side of the house, really we're going to continue to provide those services at approximately the same level. That's a fairly small budget. I think it's something on the order of $250,000 this fiscal year. We haven't put a lot of emphasis in the past on the ground efforts beyond data collection and reporting in the Surface Water Management Agency of Clackamas County service area, and we have built up some small amount of reserves that we're going to be using this year to kind of enhance our efforts there. With respect to maintenance activities, plantings, and things like that. The spoiler alert here is from the sanitary sewer side of the house, we're asking for a 3% budget increase, or rate increase for FY 17-18. That means a 65 cents per month per household rate increase going from $21.50 to $22.15. As you know, Oregon City and now Gladstone both charge a right-of-way fee on top of that. So for Oregon City residents, they'll be looking at an extra $135 per month on top of the $22.15, and Gladstone $1.10 on top of their base rate. On the surface water side of the house, we're asking for a 2.5% increase for what will be the SWIMAC service area. That equates to 10 cents per household per month, going from $4 to $4.10. And with that, I'm happy to take questions or just hand it over to Doug. Commissioner Humbers. Oh.
Yeah, I had one question, or not really a question, but just a comment. I noticed in here that under CCSD number 1 that you had done your refinancing of your existing debt, and it should be noted so that the public hears this, that you saved the district $625,000 as a result of that kind of financial stewardship, which bodes well in terms of your sense of responsibility towards the ratepayers. So when you ask for a 3% increase, it's not as if you're just wasting money. So it's very much appreciated that you were able to do that.
Great, and I would just add, so the 600 and something thousand per year, that's directly affects rates.
Yes.
So that's O&M type money. We also saved over the course of the loan about $9.7 million, and we freed up about $7.5 million in reserves that we can now apply to our construction fund. So it's kind of a trifecta of goodness when we did that.
Excellent.
If we want to step to this presentation, would you like that, or we do that very briefly in the interest of time, or we can go right to some highlights or of the particular budget? The presentation that we have is department-wide, so it includes both WES and Service District Number 1. So hopefully that's clear. But if you want to step through that, can you?
Sure.
Maybe help me with that? If you flip to page 27 in your budget, it's like the page right behind the Performance Clackamas tab. That's where a lot of this initial discussion will happen. We are taking a look at the department as a whole, so this considers both Service District Number 1 and Water Environment Services combined when you look at the numbers back here. Water Environment Services has 4 different lines of business. We have administration, customer service and outreach, operations, planning, and capital delivery. Within each of those lines of business, we have programs. We have a total of 15 different programs. And if you look on page 31 of your budget, you can get a quick sense in those little blue boxes there for how much money is going in total into each one of those programs. So it gives you a sense of how those break out. And I'm just kind of stepping through this just to give you a quick sense. And then if you flip the page one more time to page 33, we actually break out those numbers by service district number 1 sewer, service district number 1 surface water, and water environment services sewer and surface water also. So we go from the programmatic level of budgeting all the way down to the line item detail in this budget. So there is a connection throughout as to how this all works. So, all right. Moving forward, just to give you some brief comments on the different lines of business. In the administrative line of business, one of our big decision points was making 2016 would be a decision regarding governance and co-investment. I think there's been a lot of progress in that area. We need to belabor that one at this point. We're looking at establishing a rate strategy that ensures no more than 10%. I think we're there right now. We're looking for 3%, and my look in the next few years shows that we don't have to worry about getting near 10% rate adjustments for this capital plan that we're envisioning for the next 5 years. So that's good news all the way around. Moving forward, I'll skip the next one if you want. Customer service and outreach. We're looking to see if all of our customers are billed appropriately, and we have been doing some feedback work with our customers to get some input from them about how they're being treated, and so far so good, I think. We're looking at really great customer satisfaction levels, and we couldn't be happier with that.
Can I interrupt for a minute? When you say customers, who do you mean the cities or actually the individuals?
Customers that walk in our door, customers that we've surveyed directly, so yes.
So
Thank
we're
you.
talking about ratepayers, yes.
Ratepayers, yes.
Absolutely. Those are our customers.
I'll move on to operations very briefly. This is our single biggest line of business for obvious reasons. It's $17 million out of our total $27 million for the department as a whole. We have some aggressive goals there, looking for 100% free from discharge violations, 90% of maintenance performed as preventative versus corrective, and 50% of district streams that are healthy, which is a very aggressive goal for the surface water program, believe it or not. Significant issues are that we are expanding our professional services budget in the operations area quite substantially. We're committing a lot of resources to rewriting our rules and regulations for both districts. They haven't been rewritten since they were formed back in the 70s and the early 80s, and there's a lot of updating that needs to get done to bring those up to speed, to bring them online and make them more accessible to everybody. So there's extensive amount of work that we're budgeting for that. We're also looking at full-year implementations for the right-of-way fee that Greg discussed for Gladstone and for Oregon City. And Happy Valley also will have a full year of right-of-way fee that they're implementing as well. Planning and capital delivery. Planning and capital delivery, the big increase there this year is that we are significantly increasing our capital expenditures to around $25 million for the departments as a whole. That's $20 million for District 1 and about $5 million for the Water Environment Services District. And that's the reflection of the fact that our capital plan has been renewed and revamped and under Lynn Chicoine, and we're getting ready to kick off some significant capital expenditures, both in relation to the solids handling project as well as upgrading the Kellogg facility. As you know, it's been needing upgrades for quite some time, so we're kicking a lot of money into that.
Doug, can I interrupt for just one? This is something I meant to mention in my remarks, and I wanted to talk quickly about system development charges. So for Water Environment Services, the SDCs are about almost 14% of the budget. We're seeing significant growth in Oregon City. About 80% of SDCs that we're forecasting are going to come from growth in Oregon City. And we are proposing to raise the SDC about 13% this year from $2,765 to $3,120, or no, we're going to $3,855 this year from $3,125. It started out as $2,765. So a couple, 2 or 3 years ago, what was then the Tri-City Advisory Committee recommended that we ramp up our SDCs over a 5-year period. We're in the 3rd year of doing that. And so our SDCs are proposed to approach $4,000 per household or per EDU this year. I do also want to acknowledge, though, that that was based on capital projections that were put together as far back as, well, 2011. And I think given what we're doing now with our collection system master planning effort, the formation of the 190, taking a hard look at what we're going to have to do for both growth and asset replacement and capacity over the next few years, it's time for us, it will be time for us to revisit our SDCs across all of our service districts. So.
Moving into just a very brief comment or two about the department-wide budget overview. If you look on the slide before you now, we have a total combined budgets of about $193 million, and that looks huge. And the reason that's huge is about $56 million of that represents some transfers we're going to do next year from the old service district number 1 into the west district. So it's not new spending or anything like that. It's just moving money from one source to another. That inflates your budget. It's a big transfer item, so no need to get too worried about that. If you look at the major expenditures categories, that's the special payments. It's, again, the $57 million. Operations is $27 million. Capital is $25 million, so almost as significant as our operations budget. Debt service is remaining about $7 million, and we're going to have significant contingencies and reserves of $76 million. And when you look at that, you think, my gosh, that's a lot of money, but we have a capital plan that's about $150 million big, going on for the next 5 years, so we're going to spend that money in addition to additional cash flows coming in the future and some borrowing as well that we'll do. But all of that will be used to help keep the rate increases that we mentioned earlier very reasonable, very modest, and very understandable by everybody. Greg mentioned we're adding one new staff person, and that's one of the bigger items we have in our budget. It's pretty much a status quo budget going forward this year. Let me see. If I could get to a couple of the major themes for the West Partnership. The budget reflects the integration of Tri-City and SWIMAC, as Greg mentioned. We're looking at significantly higher growth rates. We're looking at almost $800,000 in SDC revenue additional this coming year from what we've experienced this year. That's a pretty aggressive bet on SDCs, but our population forecast supports that number, and so we think we're going to see significant additional revenue from SDCs. Operations maintenance budget is going up, again, because of the additional person that we've asked for. It's going up because we're spending more money on our rules revisions. We're spending some more money on some additional design and work in the capital program as well. Capital outlays, 65% increase over last year. So again, we're looking at really spending a lot more money in our capital program. And as Greg mentioned, the rates are going up 65 cents for sanitary sewer. Greg jumped the gun a little bit on the STCs. We're actually increasing the STC to $3,125 from the $2,800 mark. We are eventually going to get to the $3,855 amount, but that's another 2 years. The initial recommendation was a 5-year ramp up of the SDCs to the $3,800 amount. So we're on our way, but we're not quite there yet. So we're going to be at $3,125. And the surface water rate adjustment is, again, as Greg mentioned, is 10 cents for the SWIMAC service area. So that's my brief presentation on the budget. Happy to take some questions or your comments.
Any questions?
Actually, I'm going to wait to find out if there's anyone here to testify. Is there anyone here to testify? Okay, so I'm going to make a comment. One of the comments we hear from the cities and various partners is that Clackamas County continues to raise the cost of services, and yet there's not a single person here to tell us that. And, you know, the cost of providing this service has gone up incrementally, very small increments over the years. It's the cities that tack on the additional costs that have risen substantially over the years. And some cities, I don't know the percentage, but, you know, it's, do you remember the percentages like Oregon City?
In the case of Oregon City, over the past 2 years, I think.
Are you on your mic?
Yeah, mic's on. I think I had estimated it to be about a 40% increase in the local collection rate for the city of Oregon City.
Yeah, and that's amazing when you think that we're only raising 65 cents. And our SWAMAC is raising 10 cents. I think those are very reasonable. And compared to Portland prices, having lived in Portland 15 years ago, about 15 years ago, maybe it was 20, the prices were much higher than they are in Clackamas County today.
Still are.
They still are. And so, I mean, I just got to say that it's, one year we had a gentleman here on one of these budget committees who was actually cheerful because we were not raising the rate enough to accommodate the needs of the future. And I think what we're doing here today and what we're looking at, what we are doing here in the future is creating a sustainable organization. We, however, need to focus on helping some of those folks who have been unable, even at double the rate, to fulfill their needs to reduce the flow of water into the sewer system. But if we're going to address the needs of growth in the future, we can really reduce the need for future investments if we stop that and invest in those kinds of repairs in
I
cities
don't
of
think you're gonna
Gladstone
stop
and
the
Milwaukee.
growth.
No, I'm just saying the cost, we can stop the need for adding more digesters if we reduce the inflow of water into the system that we have to process. Guaranteed. Just like using less electricity means we need fewer power plants. It's also true with this. But I gotta say, I think we're doing a great job of keeping the prices down and addressing the needs of the future. And it's too bad that the cities who complain, not all cities complain about it, but evidently they're meeting, I was told, that they are meeting, all the cities are, about a district, creating a district. I was told that just Friday, that they're meeting to do that, which is something that we will consider someday in the future. But right now we have the need that with new digesters to accommodate the growth that is happening in many of these cities, and particularly Happy Valley. But I think I want to just compliment you and your folks for the outstanding efforts you are taking in keeping the price reasonable, providing outstanding service, and addressing the needs of the
quality.
future. And
You
the what?
forgot the word with quality.
Yes, and the quality, the high level of quality that you guys provide. Anyway, I just want to make that comment because I'm surprised after hearing what I hear that there's nobody here to testify.
Thank you very much, Jim. Anybody else?
I just want to make a few comments. I'm going to save some of them for the
You said everything I
Service
wanted
District
to
Number
say.
1 part of this, which is more of a process exercise. But I do want to say, one of my concerns is that with this right-of-way fee, that it's not necessarily the most equitable way of passing along a
Burden.
fee, because, you know, there may or may not be really a fair impact or a means of doing that. I want to, if the means of those revenues are there to take care of some of the piping problems and I&I problems, by all means, I think that's necessary. So on one hand, I think, provided that's the case, great. We have to do that. It's environmentally going to be mandated if we don't do something and we're not proactive about that. So I think that's a good thing. The bad thing about it, though, or the difficult thing about it is to, number one, pass that along without a lot of public information and outreach into, it's becomes really a hidden fee or a hidden tax that we're on, basically going to have to impose back. And it looks as though we're raising the rate when actually, you know, it's a fee that's been induced by a city action in this case. And what complicates that a little bit is that when it's portrayed that we're raising the rate, when in reality it's someone else raising the rate. And if you look at the stewardship of the rates and the service we're providing, I think people have to look at what they're getting for the dollars they're spending. And I think we're doing a pretty efficient job, and we're trying to keep up with our capital needs. And I applaud those other jurisdictions that are trying to keep up with their needs. When it comes to service district number 1, I'm scratching my head because I think we still have debt. We built the roads and the sewer in the other district, and so to pass on a fee, I guess I need to see how that is going to be a benefit to each individual household. How exactly that fee that'll be implemented on a monthly basis will result in something of benefit to the service provision.
That's a great question, and I think I passed along, I was in Salem in front of the Finance Committee earlier in this session when this issue came up, and we provided testimony. And really what we were asking for, we agree that there's an equity and a fairness issue there, and so we simply wanted to understand what that right-of-way fee would be used to pay for, and asked that be included in some legislation. It didn't really go anywhere, and it's more of a legal argument about whether they can, and I think it's at this point fairly settled is that they can charge this. We were just asking for some kind of accountability for that. Whether that happens in the future, I'd sure like to see it. But we don't at this point have a lot of control over that.
That's a good point. Ken?
Following up on Commissioner Savas's comments, I think we all should probably encourage the cities that charge this fee and that have collection services within their boundaries. We should encourage them to take the fee and actually spend it on the infrastructure that they have sadly neglected for 30 years, quite frankly. One of the reasons that I'm certainly don't want to see us go to a city-run system at this point in time is that the history of them running their own facilities doesn't look very good to me. They have not maintained the pipes, which is all they had to maintain. And it seems to me that they really should be using this fee to fix their system and not just use it to scrape off additional administrative fees for other uses. So I could go on at length, but I'll just leave it at that.
I just want to say one additional thing. When I was mayor of Milwaukee, it was always understood that fees such as that were required by law to be spent directly on what you collect those fees on. So sewer pipe fees. Milwaukee had I forget what it was a while ago, a slight increase, might have been $10 or something, $8, but we always said that those monies could only be spent one place. And when I was mayor, and I got there, the city manager had borrowed money for the riverfront project, and we paid all that money back to fund maintenance of those pipes. Now, whether they've continued to do that, I don't know, but I imagine they do, because that was a policy at the time, and that should be a policy in all our communities.
Martha?
Yeah, I have a question here. So we have no control over the amount that the cities decide to charge, and we have no control over where that money goes. It goes into their general fund at this point?
Well,
For example,
so-
where does Oregon cities go? Where does, I mean,
I don't know the nuances, but really there's a cap at this point at 5%. Oregon City early on chose 6%, but it appears through the case law that's developing that 5% is the number that we'd be looking at for a maximum. I know Oregon City originally did not delineate where those funds would be spent, but subsequent to adopting the right-of-way fee, they adopted some kind of agreement where it would be dedicated to work in the rights of way related to. It's fairly general, but it's not general fund and then wherever it's directed to their streets.
it's work related to the right-of-way, but that could mean anything other than
It
sewer.
certainly is open to interpretation, and I can't speak to Gladstone or Happy Valley whether they also specified that.
Well, Happy Valley can't collect. There are pipes, right?
Oh, they're
Right now
collecting
they
it.
are.
Really?
Absolutely.
It's in the right of way.
It's in the Happy.
If
way,
I
so-
may, it's really at the discretion of the municipality as to how those funds get directed, because they're technically revenues to their general fund. Now, I do believe that in the case of Oregon City, they adopted language in their enacting ordinance that targets those dollars to right-of-way work, which I presume includes both road improvement work as well as utility work that might be needed in the right-of-way. I'm not familiar with what the city of Gladstone and the city of Happy Valley have done in the way of how they direct those funds. I will say this, what's instructive, though, about this, and this goes to the heart of the question about equity, so that 5% that the city of Gladstone charges and that 6% that the city of Oregon City charges, so they charge that same rate to their local collection system. But when you, and the rationale underlying the right-of-way fee was that with the presence of these mains, both the local collection system and the regional wastewater treatment system, that had an impact on the use of the right-of-way, and that compensation was needed in order to help pay for the presence of those mains underneath the surface of the ground, underneath the pavement. But if you translate that 5% and that 6% into a cost per line foot, because of the nature of how much pipe the WES system has in the ground versus how much the collection system for each of the cities has in the ground, it's less than $1 per line foot for the cities that they are charging their own utility. For WES, in the case of Oregon City, it's over $16 a line foot. And in the case of Gladstone, I believe it's almost $21 a line foot. So there's no nexus between the actual line footage presence of these mains under the right-of-way and the amount of money that the cities are collecting from that right-of-way fee. This, one of the messages we've tried to share at the legislature as well, remember, this is still pending before the Court of Appeals as well, and it's part of our argument there, so.
Yeah, and I would just say, and I'll get these numbers, I'm sure slightly wrong, but we have approximately 750 feet of pipe. Tri-City has 750 feet of pipe in Gladstone's right-of-way, and we pay them about $30,000 a year for that, which is a lot of money.
I am going to jump in if I may. Following up what Don spoke about, the word right-of-way. Where does it, in my mind, differentiate when an automobile also is using in other cities as a road right-of-way to pass from one destination to another? This is what also bottle up traffic. I don't think it's any different. So now that we open up this can of worm, I think I'm going to be a little bit more active on this matter because I don't see the difference. When I drive in somebody else's city or in front of somebody else's house, that is right away. There has been apparently agreed or whatever to transportation department. And so it does kind of stumble me that why in any of you guys, even you, Greg, in Salem, they not also brought this, if we're talking right away, which I'm very against, so thank you very much, Paul, to bring it out, is that who's right away? It's all the state, it's all the county, it's all that. We need that this to that to service municipality and the people. And I still question why Oregon City came up with that. I thought it was a joke for a while, tell you the truth, pardon me, God. So there's a lot in there and answerable and explainable even in my point of view where that right away is about, what it's about. Because what they're gonna put tolls between this city and that city, your road and my road, for instance? And so, yes, thanks, Paul, to bring that up. I think we need to open up people's eyes because in West Lynn, we would collect a lot of right-of-way cash flow from people coming from Portland and using our right-of-way roads to go into camping, whatever. Isn't that the same?
Well, I would just say, so from a public infrastructure standpoint, this is new. I mean, these pipes have been in the ground in these roads for decades. And cities across the state had at least a policy of not charging other
Exactly.
public entities for providing these vital services. And that has changed over the past few years, and there's case law developing around that. The fact is, there is, when you have a city and they've got a road and there's sewer pipes, there's water pipes, there's cable, there's fiber optic, there's telephone lines, and there's a certain amount of costs associated with managing that to make sure that people aren't digging it up or whatever. We're just asking that in our testimony, in our request, we just ask that be kind of daylighted, and that the charges for those expenses be
I agree
some
with you
accountability
there.
around that.
I agree. Bill?
Well, I think you're touching on the subject is, how widespread is this amongst other cities charging for something that's going on under their streets, but they really don't, it's point A to point B across their property. So that sounds like this is beginning to be well, I wouldn't call it a gold mine, but it seems like it's something that, hey, we can do this, and then we can put it in the general budget if we like, or we can use it just for the maintenance of those pipes. It seems like there's nothing controlling this. Is there an upper limit where you can't do more than 5%? Or where are we at with this as a revenue generating thing, which the city can choose to do it any way they choose?
What I gathered when I was in Salem, I see this as we're the snowball, but we're at the top of the slope. And there's a handful of communities in Oregon that have done this. Unfortunately, we're amongst the first group, and that's why we are kind of actively involved in developing the case law around it. According to my understanding from legal counsel, the 5% is a cap. And so I think that's what we're going to continue to look at. But the cities were pretty, in their testimony to the same committee, they were pretty open about the idea that they are very limited due to, they call it 5 and 50, the past measures that limited their ability to generate revenue, and that they see this as a vital source of revenue moving forward because they're limited in other ways. Yep.
Greg, I just want to be clear. You said that that we pay 30,000 to Gladstone, but we don't. I mean, that's a pass-through, right?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
It's the citizens of Gladstone
It's
that
the
wind up
citizens
paying
of-
the
that's
30,000. It's the citizens of Oregon
Of
City that
course.
wind up. Okay.
Right.
So it's not that the rest of West pays that
No,
bill.
no,
It's for
I
those
think
people
he's right.
specifically.
Completely clear.
And on the bill, you just send them a bill. So
We
unlike,
do not.
if you, what's that?
That's another issue.
Unlike a power bill, for example, the power company's got it where they put in the city's franchise fee. We don't have that. It doesn't show up on the city's utility bill. It says there's a city franchise fee, does it?
So within the Tri-City Service District, from the initiation of that, we do not do billing. The cities simply tell us how many EDUs that they have, and they send us a check. And so we have no input on, I don't know how Oregon City or Gladstone are expressing that, that franchise fee, right-of-way fee.
Well, I'm glad you're on top of it, and you're dividing it through the city because they're paying it also back into the rate.
Yep.
So wait, you have
Ken?
to open the public hearing.
One last comment. When I served on the water board, when we had to dig up our pipes in any city, we went to the city, we paid a permit fee to do that. We paid to dig it up, we paid to fix it, and we paid to cover it back up to a higher standard than it was when we dug it up. And now the cities are charging this fee. So I would just point out for the record that in effect, the ratepayers are being charged twice for the same work, but with no guarantee as to where those funds will go. And I'll conclude my remarks with that.
Any question from the panel? Paul? Martha? Good. I didn't hear. Okay, at this time, I will close our panel's discussion, and I will ask if anybody from the public, if there's anybody that wants to speak about this issue from the public. I see no one. I close the meeting. and we go to the next step, which is,
Oh, a motion.
I would like to hear a motion on this, on the budget of, we're discussing today. If,
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion. I think you have a responsible budget here, and with an eye towards adequately maintaining what the investment that we've made in this infrastructure, and I think that's pretty darn important. Your rate increase, having spent 30 years in this business, your rate increase is relatively small, speaking. I spend my other volunteer time traveling around the United States talking about the need to invest in infrastructure, testifying before Congress. So I have a sense of what these budgets look like around this country and what people aren't doing in their infrastructure. And so I don't see, you're doing the right thing. So given that, Madam Chair, I move we approve the 2017-2018 Water Environment Services budget.
I second the motion.
thank you. Second?
I second the motion.
Thank you, Bill. It's been a motion on the table to approve the budget, and we seconded it. Any discussion, further discussion? Here none. I move that the committee approve this budget and has presented by the district. Will the commissioner?
Just call for a vote.
All in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much, because I didn't want anybody opposed on this thing. But it is quite evident that our staff are diligently always remembering their customer, but their customer, it isn't so much the customer, it is the product that they work with. I don't think many of us would like to be in those plants to work that job. So I think that we really, I personally appreciate what they're doing for the county. And saying that is, anybody else?
Can we say one quick thing?
We still have one more budget, right?
We have one more budget, but I'd like to toss in, if you will, my compliments to Carla Atwood and Aaron Blue, who led the charge on our budget this year. If you look at this budget compared to what we've produced previously, it's a sea change in presentation and content. And we are looking to also achieve the Distinguished Budget Award this year from GFOA for the first time. So just wanted to give them some recognition for their hard work.
Yeah, and I'm looking for next year to have only one presentation. We will save even more money.
Look forward to that.
And patience. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So next, the,
No, Paul?
You haven't closed the meeting. I just want to say, in simple terms, that I think our ratepayers ought to be pretty pleased with what we're doing on behalf of the environment and water quality and with the service being provided. I think they're getting a great value for every dollar or penny spent here. So, good job to our staff, and good job, Alice, for running the meeting. And
Thank you very much. Yeah, one more thing that I was going to say, then I'm going to close the meeting and everybody can move from their chair. It wouldn't be a bad idea when you have only one budget for all departments of West to also bring a comparison, not a long list of it, what the rates are, comparing of the amount of consumers, actually of that, so people can have a visual table to compare.
199, Alice.
Yeah, we do, in Appendix B, we do show regional, page 199.
Well, I didn't get that far. Because it was delivered on my birthday last weekend.
99, huh?
Yeah, well, there's one, yeah, well, that's very important. With a little bit of figure in here, people like to have figures.
Graphics.
my Comcast bill, for example.
Yeah.
and I have the best rates, and that's a septic system.
And now, then there's no question from this panel, I will close the meeting.